I have many customers here with the contact information, customer name, address, city, state, and so on. I also created a document that I want to mail off to each of these customers separately. So one document that's addressed, going to be addressed to this customer, and the second document to that one, and so on. So instead of doing it separately for a total of 14 customers, I can go ahead and use the mail merge feature that with that one document, I can insert the merge field of the customer name. And so after it pulls in the first name, it says, okay, we've got more. Then it duplicates that letter and pulls in the second name. So the second letter for Home Builders, the third letter for Happy Town Playworld, and so on until we get a total of 14. Sound cool? I knew it would. Let's go ahead and take a look at the letter that we're going to be pulling these names into so we can address and mail off the letter to each one of these customers. Let me restore my exercises folder. It's right here, the client's merge letter. Double click. Here we go, today's date, and then we've got dear. Now I can't type in the first customer's name because if I do that and I hit print, then I'd have to delete that, type in the next one, hit print. I mean, you could do that, but no. We got a much easier way, especially if you had hundreds or thousands of them. So what we'll do is we'll insert a merge field here. I'll show you that in just a minute. But first of all, it says Kurt Kirsch on Dreamforce invite you to subscribe for the $5 monthly option, which includes all Microsoft Office training tutorials, 2016, 2013, 2010, 2007. You can also get exercises, instructor notes, and quizzes. New videos will be constantly uploaded to Patreon, so you'll get new content. Visit and sign up at this website. And this is legit, folks. I mean, if you're interested, please go ahead and sign up. It'd be great to have you. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and let's start the merge. To do that, let me close out of here. And I'm going to go back to Access and then come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Export group, and Word Merge. Let's go ahead and click on that to start the process. It says, what do you want the wizard to do? Link your data to an existing Microsoft document, or you want to start from scratch? Well, I created my document, so let's hook up. Go ahead and click Okie dokie. And it says, where is it? Well, it's in my exercises folder. Double click right there, double click. And it pulls it up. Now it pulls it up in the Mail Merge step-by-step window here, or task pane, and down below it puts us right in step 3 of 6. Now the Mail Merge feature is really step-intensive as far as the details go, so if you really want to get the nitty-gritty, you want to watch my Word training video on Mail Merge because I really go into detail. Here, I just want to give you enough to get you through it, because otherwise it's, well, I already created the training video for Mail Merge, so when it comes to Access, well, we pretty much did our part. But let me go ahead and finish it here so you can see the basics of how this works. And again, I recommend that you watch my Word Mail Merge training video if I haven't pushed that enough already. In any case, step 3, which is to go ahead and select the recipients, and it automatically did that for us. It's the customers table in the hide duplicates database. So we can go ahead and say, let's click next to go to step 4 to write the letter. Now we've already written the letter, but it says you can go ahead and add recipient information to the letter. Yeah, that sounds good because I want to be able to address each customer within my database. And you can do it numerous ways. You can do an address block, click on that, or you can choose one of the options here, and then over here you get a preview. So we don't have a first name, last name, we have the company name, so it doesn't bring that in. It just brings all the other fields that it recognizes or that it's matched to. Click on match. And so the first name's not matched, last name's not matched. I could match that to the customer name. That would be the first name, and click Okie dokie. And it says if you match a field to unique identifier, data from that field will be stored in the publication where others might be able to read it. Do you want to match this to the unique identifier? It's up to you. You can say yes. And there we go. We actually get the name. Well, first name, which is the company name, Start Temps. And you can advance to see what it looks like with all the others. Make sure everything looks grizzly. Up to 14 records. So you can do it that way to go ahead and insert that. But remember, mine, let me click cancel, is just dear. I'm not putting an address block, which I could up above, the client's name and their address. But instead, I just want to keep it simple, just a field that says dear customer name. So come over here, there's the greeting line, and it's got dear. I already have that, so I don't need to put that in there. And then you can pick and choose how you want to address the person. And it's by first name here, which is the customer name. We don't have it separated by customer name, last name, and, well, their titles, junior. So, well, let's go ahead and click cancel. We won't go that way. But what you can do is you can click on more items, and you get a list of all the fields that are available from that table in the Access database, the least of which is customer name. So when I go ahead and select that and click on Insert, it'll insert it wherever the cursor is at. You can do it here or come up here on the Mailings tab and go to the right and Insert Fields group, and you can insert the merge field there, whatever your flavor is. Let's go ahead and do customer name, and it puts in the title of the field, but in these like caret-like brackets, 2 on each side, to delineate, let you know that, hey, that's a merge field. It's going to pull in stuff from our database. In fact, when you click on it, it automatically highlights it. And you can come up here on the Mailings tab to the Preview Results and click on Preview. And it says, let's click off, Dear Happy Town Play World. Cool. And we can go to the next one, and that's 4, 5, and so it's pulling in, looks good. You can go ahead and deselect that and go back to just the title of the merge field. So if you got what you want, great. You can add more merge fields, like if you have their total sales, you can insert that. If you had a line down below that says, thank you for purchasing number of videos. And so that could work really well in helping it personalize to your customers. So we'll go ahead and leave it as is and click Next to preview the letters, and then it automatically turns this on. But in this task pane over here, it allows you to zip back and forth. And also, you can edit the recipient list, click on that and say, oh, I don't want him, him, him. You can do some sorting, filtering. You can do a lot of options in here to really clean it up before you actually print off your letters of who you'd like to see and how you'd like to see them, or sorted as is. So if we go ahead and click OK, we had a total of 14 records, and we hit a few. And you can actually, instead of doing it this way, like number 6 here, Little Mermaid cleaners, you can exclude them, exclude a lot of them, and then go back to edit it, and you can see all these boxes are unchecked, and I'm like, no, I need to let everybody know that, hey, you're getting a great deal, $5, come now. In any case, we're going to include everybody. Click okie dokie. But like I said, I go over this in great detail because this is a Word feature, the mail merge that is, so I cover it in Microsoft Word. So go ahead and watch that. So once you cleaned it up, got to the point that you're comfortable with it, go ahead and click Next to complete the merge. And then you can just go ahead and print it right off, or you can go ahead and edit the individual letters, all of them. So when you click OK, it opens up, and I got a total of 14 pages, 1 for each record. So I can go to the first one, like Star Temps, and go, I'm going to personalize this, hit Enter a couple of times, and say P.S. Remember that time that we had tons of fun? You were fabulous, babes, and then whatever you want to put. And then you can go ahead and print, and it's personalized for, well, Star Temps. Well, you got all the other pages here. And then when you're done, well, you can close out and not save it. And then you've already got the clients in here, so you can save this, and it will keep them here for a later date. But you close out of here and you don't save it, go back to your database. There's more records that are added. Addresses have changed. You may want to go ahead and start the whole process over again with the word merge. In my Access Level 1 and Level 2 training videos, we already went over how to properly construct and design a database. However, if you get a new job at a company where the original architect of the database did a poor job designing it, well, here we have what's called the Normalization Standard. Now, we already lightly touched on what normalization is in Level 1, but again, it's breaking down a table of data into its smallest, most meaningful parts or fields. So, for example, the process to help you restructure correctly a poorly designed database is a 3-phase process. You have what's called the first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. For example, the first normal form is to design or break down an unnormalized table where the value in each cell matches its field name. So, for example, over here we have the table. Does the value here, employee ID, match the field name, employee ID? Of course. Does the last name value match the field's name? No. First name, name? No. So we come over here and we break it down and say that the last name has the last name field name, the first name has the first name field name, and that's how we properly break that down and normalize it, by making sure the value in each cell matches its field's name. So again, last to last, first to first. Next, after you finish the first normal form, we have the second, and that's used to establish functional dependency after conforming, again, of course, to the first normal form, what we just covered. So what you want to do is you want to move any fields to another table that are not, quote, fully dependent upon the primary key. So we have a table here. We have the employee ID, the project code, and the hours, because those are all dependent upon the employee ID. Well, so is the department, but you notice the theme here where you have the project that you're working on, it's 40 hours. That can be broken down into a table all on its own, where the department can be dependent upon the employee ID, but that can be in a table on its own as well. So again, making sure that any field that's not, quote, fully dependent upon the primary key, you want to break it down, or to put another way, where you have the majority of fields that seem to have a common theme dependent upon the primary key, like the project and the hours worked on the project, put that in a separate table, and then anything else, like the department, in another table. Finally, the third normal form is used to establish a non-transitive dependency in a table, again after, of course, satisfying your first and second normal forms and in that order. So what you want to do here is you want to ensure that a non-key field doesn't depend upon another non-key field in the same table. And if so, it's moved out. So for example, we have here this table where we have the department and the department head. Now the department head is totally dependent upon the department here, because being a department head means nothing if you don't know the department, so it's fully dependent upon the department here knowing what they're the head of. So what we do is we say, okay, let's break down and just say the employee ID is assigned to a department. So you have employee 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the different departments. And then we'll have over another table who is the head of those departments with, listing the departments here as the primary key, and then the department heads, employee 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. Now again, the whole purpose of the three-phase normal form process is to help you straighten out a database that was created by a less knowledgeable user. To help you with this, you want to watch the next training video on the Table Analyzer Wizard. It can help you actually break down one table at a time, as you see here, into many different tables, if it needs to be broken down. In other words, if it's not normalized correctly, Access will help you figure that out. If somebody hands you a poorly designed database, for example, if they've crammed everything into one table, as you see here, it's not very efficient. Because if I just need to pull up the customer information over here, do I need to see these other fields? Of course not. It would slow down the system to pull up those other fields and the data they're in. Not only that, but if you have a lot of columns here, you may have to scroll over to find the ones that you're looking for to be able to sort through those. So instead, I want to go ahead and normalize this table. In other words, I want to break it down into its smallest, most meaningful tables. And right off the bat, I can tell you just by looking at it, I can break this down into at least 4 tables. I'm thinking one for the customers, the category, product, and the orders. And I can do it one of a couple of ways. One way is to go ahead and create a copy of this table and rename it like the customers, then go into the customers table and get rid of all the fields that, well, aren't directly related to the customers here. Maybe through the orders, but then that would be a separate table. For example, let's go ahead and right-click here, go down to copy, right-click in a blank area to paste. And we went over this feature in an earlier training video on backing up our tables by creating copies of them. So you want to make sure you watch my training videos, because if you don't, well, Access is a process, and so you may be doing so at your own peril. In any case, let's go ahead and type in TBL, orders, let's do the structure and data, click Okie dokie, and there it is, double click. Same thing, except a different name here. So in this table, I'd get rid of all the fields that aren't tied directly to an order. So the fields that I would like to keep would be the order number, maybe the transaction date, definitely the customer ID, because I want to be able to associate each order with the customer. So this would be the foreign key field in the orders table that I could create a relationship to the customer ID, the primary key field in the customer table. Phew, sounds very tedious. It may take a while assigning primary keys to each table and a foreign key field in another so they can be related. So instead, how about if we use some help called the Table Analyzer Wizard? So what that does is it'll analyze the table, and when it finds any duplicates, it'll separate it into its own table. Why? We'll see if this makes sense. Well, let me get out of the orders. I don't want to work with the orders, and right-click, and we'll delete it. Looking at the category, how many categories do I have? Well, down below we got a total of 108. Well, that's not true. We got a lot of duplicates here, right? So in and of itself, the category is not really helpful to me at all, especially when I want to find if we have the category tense. I have to go through a bunch of duplicates to find it. But the duplicates are great. They're fabulous when it comes to the order, because I want to be able to sell products from the same category many, many times. And it's also with the products, I want to sell those many, many times. So duplicates are great, but not in and of itself. When I want to identify If we have a product like Tiki Torch, got to go through all the duplicates to find it. Oh, that's not cool. Or if I can't find it, again, I'm going through duplicates. So the table analyzer wizard will take a look at this and put it into its own table and then create a relationship to the order through a primary foreign key field. So to go ahead and normalize this by using the table analyzer wizard, come up here, click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Analyze group, and click on Analyze Table. The wizard is going to ask us a bunch of questions based upon our answers. It's going to break it down into other tables that we can accept or reject or even tweak within the wizard. We can also do it after the wizard. But the first step in the wizard is the problem. What's the problem? Duplicate data. As you can see over here in this image, it's got an example that when you have the suppliers and products in the same table, because you can have different products but from the same supplier, so it's going to create duplicate suppliers. So it's information being repeated, and that's going to waste space. The second problem is, well, a mistake could be a misspelling, because when you're typing in the supplier over and over again, instead of having it in its own table and pulling it in once, you could get a lot of front-end users that don't type it correctly, and you could get mistakes. So what's the solution? Next, it's right here, solving the problem. You've got your table, and we're splitting it. One for the suppliers, one for the products, and here's the primary key field, the foreign key field that it links up to it. So in the suppliers table, in and of itself, I can just focus on one supplier and not have them listed a gazillion times. And so if I need to make an update to the supplier, I can just type it in here and not have to go into all the duplicates to update that. Oh, that's annoying. And so great. And then we have the products over here. And of course, the ID can be duplicated many times because different products from the same supplier. So you can go ahead and click on the Show Me Examples, and you can do it back here as well. It just explains what I explained to you. So show me an example here. It says, you might think that there are only 3 here, the products supplied by Pavlova, but the answer is 4 because that's misspelled in any case. Like I said, you can click on this if you want to read it yourself, but I just explained it to you. Let's go ahead and click Next. And it says, which table contains fields that values are repeated in many records? You only have one table, so the wizard is going to split the table into 2 or more related tables. It won't modify the original table, so I'll have my original still here. Great. Let's go ahead and click Next. And it says, how do you want the wizard to work with this? Do you want it to decide, or do you want to do your own splitting? Well, if I say no, I want to do my own, and I click Next, it says have at it. You've got your table here. Let me click and drag the bottom of it and all the fields. And so to go ahead and normalize this, like I want my customer table, go ahead and click and drag a field over and off and let go, and it says, okay, we got a new table. What's the name of the table? Well, it's going to be customer. Hit enter, and there you go, customer. Hover over the bottom, click and drag, there's the customer ID. But wait a second, what if I don't like the wizard's generated ID? And what it means by generated ID is that it's got the data type auto number, so it's going to be unique. That'll automatically generate a number sequentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But if my customer ID, if I remember right, is unique, there's no duplicates, I don't want to use what it generated, then go ahead and select the field that you want as the primary key and come up here and click on it, and it removes what it suggested or generated. So there's the customer table with the customer ID, but what else do we need here? Oh, the customer name. That's right. Click and drag and let go, and that's how you do it. Just go ahead and click and drag to create your own different groups or tables, customers, and you can select that and click on the rename table and give it a name. That is after you normalize it. So you can do it that way, or let me click back, have the wizard have at it, let it do the work for us, and then we can tweak it if we don't like what it did. Let's go ahead and click Next, and whoa, look at all those different tables. And oh, the relationships are crossing. Hey, you don't want to cross each other in a relationship because that just hurts. Let's go ahead and drag these around so you can move them in this teeny tiny little window. In fact, you can go beyond or down. You just have to scroll, so thank goodness I don't have to scroll. Don't have that many fields. And let's go ahead and hover over these so I don't scroll or have to scroll within the tables. And there we go. Okay, let's take a look at this. Is the wizard grouping information correctly? Because if not, you can drag and drop the fields to form groups that make sense or tables. So you can say, drag this over here, create a separate table, but that's the only field within that table. So what is that quantity? Is it the order? Well, the order number is in a different table. So what's it doing here? That will be my order table, and this could be the details of the order. All right. Well, instead of table 1, because what does that mean? it says, what name do you want for each table? It's a good idea to name the table to identify the kind of information that it carries. So to rename it, select it, come over here, click on it, and let's do table, order details, hit enter. There you go. And you can see it's got an auto number, a generated ID for that, because the quantity, you could have the same quantity. That's not going to make the record unique. So it's got to have its own unique ID. Again, the auto number, the data type. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the quantities for each one. And so it relates to, well, let's go ahead and name the tables first before we analyze this, because saying table 3, what's that? I think it's going to be the products. Let's go ahead and select that, click on it, TBL, products, hit enter, and then this is the category, rename. And then that one's the customer, makes sense. And then this one will just be the orders. Hit enter. Okay, so we've got the quantity for the order that somebody made of the products that they purchased and the category in its own table. So we can just focus on the category, not have duplicates there. I'm looking at the generated ID. That's probably good. It's maybe not the auto number. Maybe I want to tweak that and say, hey, how about if we actually have a product ID? I think that would be better. We could use the generated auto number as the product ID if you want to go with that. Like I said, you can tweak this at the end if you don't like what you see here, but just maybe focus on what you generally like. Any major changes you may want to fix now and not have to do it at the end and make it really major. So if everything looks good here as far as the connections go, let's click Next. Now here it explains what I just explained in the previous step, is that when it finds something unique, it can look at it and assign the primary key to it. But if it can't find like quantity, because you could have somebody purchase 5 on one day, 5 on the next, so there's duplicates. So it automatically said, hey, let's just go ahead and generate an auto number data type field here. So don't sweat it. I mean, if you don't like it, you can go ahead and continue with what you do like here, and at the end, go back and tweak it. And then, actually rename this instead of generated unique ID. In the design view, you can call it the product ID. So let's go ahead and click Next, keep it simple here. And then this is interesting, correcting typographical errors for the table products. So what it's looking at, it's found some records with very similar values. Records referring to the same information should be identical so that they will be combined into one unique record. It's identified likely corrections. Likely, it may not be. And so looking at Canteen at $15, well, you can go ahead and choose from a list here, but you know what? I'm going to leave it as is. I don't want to change it here, so I'm good. Let's go ahead and click Next. And then that's it. After the wizard creates new tables, it can create a query that looks like your original table but does much more. It actually shows you the foreign key fields in there as well, puts everything into it. I'm going to say no and click Finish. Commander action, tile horizontally isn't available because I have my tabs, so if I didn't have tabs, it would tile horizontally, but that's okay. We don't need it. Go ahead and click OK, and there we go. We have our original table, the other tables that it normalized into. Looking at the category table, there's the category, the ID. If you don't like the name of it, well, I recommend if you want to make any changes, let's go ahead and right-click on a tab and close out of all of them, and click on the navigation pane to expand it. Before you make any changes, close out of the original table, because if you try to make any changes, it may give you errors. You want to refresh it, so close out of everything and then go ahead and, well, right-click, go to the design view, and if you don't like ID, you can go ahead and type in cat ID for category ID, whatever changes you want to make. We talked about the two different types of relationships, the one-to-many and many-to-one. Here I want to go over the many-to-many, which, by the way, Access does not support many-to-many relationships. In other words, it doesn't support multiple records in one table corresponding to multiple records in another. For this example, I've got these two tables here, like the employees, or I've got the employee ID duplicated. Why? Because you got the same employee working on different projects. Where in the projects table, I've got the project ID duplicated because I can have different employees working on the same project. So you see the problem that I'm running into here, that when I want to relate these two tables together, they would create a many-to-many relationship. So that's not going to work because there's no unique field. But to get around that, well, let me show you. Let's come up here, go to the Database Tools tab, to the Relationships, click on Relationships, and I like visuals here. So you got these two tables. What I can do to bring them together is to create an intermediary or join table, wherein I will take the employee ID and put it in that table, and then the project ID and put it in the join table as well. Sure, I'll have duplicate employee IDs in that table and duplicate project IDs, but collectively, I won't have the same employee ID and project ID for one record listed in the next record. Well, let me show you. Let's go ahead and close out of here, our join table. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Tables group. Let's do it by design. So the first field we'll pull from the Employees table. This will be ID, hit the Tab key. And we want to make sure it's got the same data type. So let's go to the Employees table, right-click on it, go to the Design view, Employee ID, short text, great. And then the field size is 4, so let's come back to our table here. Short text and the field size, we want to keep it the same. And then hit Enter. And then for the project here, the ID, we could say it's project ID or number. Just remember that if you name it differently, it's just up to you to make sure it's got the same data type and type of data within that field, and that you remember what that field's about. That's why I like to name them the same, so I can relate the project ID to the project ID here. Well, in any case, let's hit the Tab key. It's short text is the project ID in here. Right-click, go to the Design view. Also short text, yes. And the field size is 6, so let's come back here, come down here and change that field size to 6 as well and hit Enter. And like I said, we're going to have duplicates when we add records from the Employees table, because in the Employees table, it includes the employee ID and the project ID. So come back here, well, right-click, go to the Datasheet view, see the employee ID and the project ID. Well, it's not include some of these here because there's no project that these employees are working on, and that's okay. When we do an append query, as you recall in an earlier training video, we can take records from one table and add them to another, and that's what I want to do here. And when it can't find something here, it just doesn't bring it over. It doesn't prevent it from being added. Any record within the table here, just those that don't have a complete record, like we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so back here, like I said, we can have duplicates here, but not collectively. And do you recall in an earlier training video that when you assign a primary key to 1, let me come up here, click on the Design tab, you come over here and click on it. But when you assign a primary key to 2 or more, it becomes a composite key. So that means that instead of having this allowing no duplicates, which is impossible because it's going to have duplicates, and that one's going to have duplicates, but collectively, come up here and assign both of them the primary key. We can't have an employee ID working on one project number listed again, the entire record as a duplicate. Individually, yes, but not collectively. So let's come up here and click on the Save button and TBL. We'll call this our Assignments table. Hit Enter. Click the View button. No records here. And we want to create. Come up here, click on the Create tab. Go to the Queries group. We'll do Query by Design. An append query that will take the records from the Employees table and add it to the Assignments table, because in the Employees table, double-click, close out. It's got both the employee ID from that table and the project ID that we want from, well, it's the foreign key field in the Employees table, but would be the primary key in the projects table, but we can't have that, hence the join table. So we can actually have between these two fields a uniqueness that can't be found in these fields separately. So let's go ahead and double-click to add the employee ID, double-click to add the project ID, and let's come up here on the Design tab, go to the Query Type group, and let's do Append. And it says, okay, where's the table? Click on the drop-down arrow, it's the Assignments. Go ahead and click Okie dokie. Then down below it says it'll add the records from the field here to that field in the Assignments table. Now, why is it not doing it for the project ID to the project field in the Assignments table? Well, there's another good reason why I want to keep the names the same, because Access can quickly see that, hey, these are the same. This field has the same name in this table as this field in the other. And since these fields don't have the same name, project ID, I have to go down and identify it myself and its project number. So again, I did this to prove a point. And then let's go ahead and come up here, click on the Fun Run button. And it says you're about to append 25 rows. And remember, of the 25, there's 4 that won't come over because they're blank. Click Yes. And it says it can't do it because of violations. Because remember, primary keys don't allow duplicates or empty values. So let's go ahead and say yes, we'll continue. And that should be it. We can close out of the query. I don't need it anymore once I've done it. And then, hey, where's the records? Well, since the table's been opened, we have to come up here and refresh. There we go. Cool. So we got duplicates over here, but between the two, we shouldn't have one record with the employee ID 12 and the project number 800 duplicated again. We can have 12 and 900, we just can't have 12 and 800. We could also have 813, but just, again, not the same employee on the same project duplicated. Same employee on different projects or different projects for the same employee, we're good. Okay, on to the next training video where we need to restructure the two tables before we can connect or relate to the junction table, these two tables. Because in the two tables, we now need to make the ID fields as primary key fields. But that's not going to work because currently there are duplicate data in those fields. And the reason we can now make those fields in the two tables into primary key fields is because it'll be duplicated over here in the junction table, the assignments, where it's going to allow duplicates individually but not collectively by record. And so that's how we're basically going to restructure it, is by assigning the primary key to the employee ID in the employee table and the primary key to the project ID in the project table. But again, we have to eliminate the duplicates prior to assigning the primary keys to the two tables, and then allowing us to link them up to or relate to the primary key fields in the junction table. Picking up where we last left off from the previous training video, which if you didn't watch, then this won't make any sense, so you'll want to watch it. I want to take these two tables, the employees and the projects table, and restructure them into two new tables. Why? So it complies with the third junction table here, because these two tables have duplicate fields. Remember, the employee ID is duplicated. Why? Because you can have the same employee working on different projects. And in the projects table, it's duplicated here because you can have different employees working on the same project. And so that's why we created the assignments table, where we can have duplicates here that, well, in this primary key, remember, right-click, go to the design view, that in that primary key field we can have duplicates, and that one we can have duplicates. You could say, wait a minute, I thought you can't have duplicates in primary key fields. Yes, just in a single field, but if you have two or more fields assigned a primary key, it converts that into a composite key where the combination between the two fields cannot be duplicated. So when I right-click and go to the datasheet view, duplicates, but I can't have the same record listed twice. So 12, 800, 12, 800, that would be a violation of the two primary key fields or the composite. So I can have the employee ID listed many times, but only once for one project, and vice versa. I can have the project number listed many times, but for this project, that employee only once. So when it comes to restructuring these tables, I'll basically just copy these two tables, the employees and the projects table. And what do I want to copy? Just the structure. I don't want to copy or include the data because remember, the data is in violation of the primary key. So after I copy the structure of these tables and set up the primary key field, like for the employee ID in the employees table and the project ID in the project table, then I'll create a query to copy over those records into the two new tables, these temporary tables, as it were. But when it copies and wants to paste them over into it, it'll look at those primary key fields and say, oh, wait a second, I can't copy over any duplicates because it's preventing me. So instead, I'll append all of them except just those ones that would be duplicating. So it just brings over one and keeps the duplicates away and doesn't bring them in. So to go ahead and restructure this, we want to copy these tables and just have the structure of it. And then we'll go ahead and use the queries. So let's do the employees, right-click on the employees. Let's copy that, right-click over here anywhere and paste it. And it's going to be TBL, temporary table employees. And you got three options. The structure, where it just copies the fields over, the name of the fields and the data type, but no data. Then you got the structure and the data, and then append data to existing table. If you select that option here, you would type in the name of an existing table you'd like to paste or append the data that you copied from the other table. We're not going to do that. We're just going to do structure. Click Okie dokie, and there it is. Double click. It's got no data. And what we want to do is we want to assign the employee ID the primary key field. So let's right click, go to the design view, come up here, assign it there. And we don't need the project ID field here because again, we can't have duplicates. And not only that, but when it comes to linking this table up to our junction table, it's going to be by the employee ID to its employee ID in there. And it's got the project ID, the primary key that will link up to the project tables. So we don't need it listed here. Let's right-click on the row header and delete it and say yes, and then go ahead and click Save. So we have our structure set up for the employee table, the temporary that is. Let's go ahead and close out of that. And let's do it for the projects. Right-click on that. Let's go to Copy. Right-click anywhere here, paste it, and then TBL for table, temp, projects. And we just want the structure only. Click Okie dokie. And then double-click on it, and, well, we should right-click on it, go to the design view. Assign the ID the primary key field, and then the employee ID, it's got no part in it because remember, it's not going to be directly relating to the employees table, but through the junctions. So the project ID is already in the junction table. We don't need the employee ID. Right-click on it. Let's go ahead and delete it, and then click Save. Let's close out of here. Now we can go ahead and create our query. Let's do it for the temporary employee table first. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Queries group. Let's do it by design. Click on it, and let's do it for the employees table. Close out because we want to take that and use the action query append, what we find in here, what gets pulled here, and add it to our temporary table. So we want to add the employee ID, double-click the last name and the first name. And when you click on the View button, of course, it contains duplicates, but that's okay because, let's go back to the design view. When we come up here and click on the append, and we want to append that to our temporary employee table, and click OK, that, remember, the employee ID in the temporary table has a primary key field assigned to it. So when it says, oh, can't have duplicates, then it'll pull over everything except something that would be duplicated again. And so just keeping it unique, the entire record, one value here, one employee ID. And let's come up here, click on the Run button. You're about to append 25 rows. You okay? Yes. It says Microsoft can't append all the records. Why? Because there's duplicates. That would be a violation because you have a primary key assigned to the employee ID in the temporary table. Okay? Oh, all right. Yes. Let's open up the temporary employee table. Do I see any duplicates? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. No, hey, it's working. It's working. Let's go ahead and close out of that. So we have it for this. We can go ahead and close out of that and, create one for the project table. Come back up here, click Create, Query by Design. Let's do Projects, double-click, close out. And we want to do the project ID and project name. And then come up here, click on the Append button. And we want to append it to our temporary project table. And click OK. And it's mapping them, project ID to project ID and the project name to project name. I mean, that's just so clean and easy. So keep the names the same is what I recommend. And then come up here and click on Run. You're about to add 21. Yes. Hey, we got violations because the primary key in the temporary project table does not allow duplicates. Okay, click Yes. Then we open it up. Are there any duplicates here? No. Oh, that's looking good. Almost done. Let's go ahead and close out of here. In fact, let's just close out of everything. So we've got the temporary tables that now are built correctly or structured correctly to be able to join up with the join table. So what we need to do is, yes, get rid of our old tables here and just delete them. And the projects, that's right. Because we're going with their temporaries, which, well, I don't like the word temp because now it's a permanent thing. Let's go ahead and right-click and rename them. And call this our, see how we're doing that? It's all magic. And now that we got this set up, let's go ahead and come up here, click on the Database Tools tab, go to the Relationships group, open up the relationship floor, and let's go ahead and click on Show Table. We want the assignments, double-click, close out, and let's see if this makes sense. So we got the primary key, employee ID, that goes to the primary key in the other field. We'll enforce and cascade, update, delete, click Create. We have a one-to-many. The project ID goes to the project number. Enforce, updates, deletes. There we go. So we can have only one project ID in here, a unique value. We can't have it duplicated, the project ID in this table, but we can have many of them in this table. And we can have one employee ID in this table, one employee to focus on, but we can have the employee here in this table duplicated many times, because he could be working on many projects, and we can have many projects duplicated here because we have different employees working on those same projects, but collectively there's no duplicates. So isn't that spiffy? That's how you take care of a many-to-many relationship because it can't handle it. So we create our junction table or go-between or codependent that says, hey, talk to me and I'll work things out. So it takes some restructuring, but we can do it, and we did it. If you ever want to focus on a few fields, you can hide columns, like for example, Kristen's contacts. Rarely do I look at the employee ID, just their last name, first name, and maybe their phone number. So what I can do is I can hide this column by right-clicking on the column header and going down to hide. And then to get rid of all these other columns, or to hide them as it were, you can just go ahead and click on one and then, not letting go of the mouse, drag over to select the rest of those column headers and then right-click in that selection to hide those as well. Now we can do more here. Let's click and drag and right-click and hide those. And the good news is about this is that what you see here, if you want to print this off, is not going to print those hidden columns. In fact, if you want to come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage to Print, go to Print Preview, click on it to zoom in. Well, just click on it out and then click on it to zoom in up at the top. What you see here is what's going to come out of your printer. And that's all I saw because all the other columns are hidden. So let's go ahead and close out of the Print Preview. And then to unhide them, you can just go ahead and right-click on any column header and go down to unhide. And then you get all the boxes that are empty, that are hidden, that you can go ahead and check and bring them all back. A subquery, also known as an inner query, is a query contained within an outer query. Well, let me create a query from scratch and I'll show you what an inner query is. So let's come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Queries group, and let's do it by design. And the table that I want is the order details. Double click, close out, and then let me drag the split bar up. So I've got the grid more in the middle of my screen here. And then from the table, let's add the order number, double click, and the product ID, double click. Now, an inner query is placing coding within the criteria field to be able to query within the main query here. So that's where it's defined as an inner query or subquery. So the code that I want to put in here is to pull in from the products table over here, double click, the product ID whose category equals, well, let's pick one, okay, TT for Tiki Torch. So when it equals TT Tiki Torch, it'll pull in that product ID, which is 1. Let's go ahead and close out of that. And to write the code in here, well, it's kind of tiny. I want you to see the entire code. So let's right-click on it and zoom in on that. So now it opens up. We got more space to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and paste the code in here. And when you paste code, you got to be careful because it will bring over, or in this case, it brought over the quotes, but the formatting of it. These quotes are, I don't know if you can see it, but they're like italicized. They're not straight. So if I try to go ahead and click Okie dokie, hit enter, and then view, enter parameter value, what the heck's that? So let's click cancel, right click on it, and go to zoom, and replace those quotes just by typing over them. So you see how that's straight and that one is curvy still. And let's go ahead and type over that with a new set of quotes. And great, we're good to go. Except, let me go ahead and explain my code first. So in the code it says in, select the product ID from the products table where the category ID equals TT for Tiki Torch. Now you don't have to have the parameters in uppercase. I did because so it can stand out and say, hey, you're selecting something. What is it? It's the product ID. From, it's like yelling at me, where? The products table. Where? The category ID equals TT. So let's go ahead and click Okie dokie. And let's come up here, click on the View button. And it only pulled in the ID that's associated with Tiki Torch, and that's 1, as we saw over here in the products table. Double click, and there you see it's 1. Tiki Torch, great. Because if we, right click and go back to the design view, and to delete this, probably the fastest way, instead of clicking in here and trying to drag and select and delete, just come over here to the beginning of the row for the criteria until you can see a black arrow pointing over to the right. Click, hit the delete key, and it's gone. So when I click on the View button, there you go. So the inner query or subquery was working because it only pulled in once, where now it's pulling in everything without that subquery. Let me go back to the design view. Now you could say, well, why are you doing that when you want to pull in from the products table the product ID 1, when you can just go ahead and right click up here and say, let's show the table and add the products table, close out. You got the relationship. And you can go ahead and double click and add the category ID down below, and then just type in, TT, because that's what you want is Tiki Torch, and hit enter, and then click on the view button, and there you go. You got the product ID, but you also get the category that goes with it. Isn't that better than typing in all that code? Well, let me go ahead and go back to the design view. You've got, the next table directly related to it, and so it was easy to pull in that field. But if you got 3 or 4 more tables, and you got to be able to pull those other tables up, or find out the relationships to be able to, double click to add the field down below, it might be easier just to go ahead and write that inner code. And you'll find out that the subquery, that when you're writing codes, when you become familiar with it, you'll notice a pattern, and it can work in other areas of access as well. And so you want to keep that in mind. Hey, I'm all for being easy, but I wanted to show you this because, like I said, it may be helpful in other areas of access, or working in here where you don't want to pull up those other tables, to be able to add that field to get what you're looking for. Okay, let's do one more. I updated the query here. Now it's just the products table. And from that table, I added the product name and the price each down below into the grid. So when I click on the view button, there's the products and there's the price each. How about if I go ahead and write a query where the records whose unit prices are less than or equal to the unit price of maybe the campfire bag? Can we do it? Of course we can. Let's right click, go to the design view, and write that inner query or subquery code for the price each by right clicking in the field and zooming. And let's go ahead and do copy and paste, and there it is. So there's the less than or equal to. Select the price each from the products table where the product name as it were, equals campfire bag. So if there's anything less than or equal to the price of that product name, go ahead and pull it up. And make sure that your quotes are straight when you copy and paste, and that they're not, didn't bring over the formatting from your document. Then go ahead and click Okie dokie. Come up here, click on the view button, and hey, there we go. So it's got to be equal to, and so because the campfire bag, of course, is equal to, remember it was less than or equal to, it brings that up, and everything that's less than that. Oh, that's fun. That could be a very powerful inner query. So you may want to remember this one. An unmatched query is a query you can create to find if there are any fields that aren't matching in between 2 tables. Say if you want to combine the tables, you don't want to bring over duplicates, just those that are not matching. Another example would be, for example, my products table. Double click. I've got the product ID over here, and that product ID is found in the order details. So it's good to find that product ID here, which means we're selling that product. Hey, we got this one duplicated many times, and so on. So how about if we find out from the product table to see if we have anything that's not matching up that product ID in the order details? Because if it's not found in here and there's no match, it means we're not selling it. I mean, you could scroll through here and try to find them all, but you got thousands of records. How annoying. Instead, we can close out of here and use the unmatched query. So come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Queries group, and let's do the Wiz thing. Click on that. And there's the Unmatched Query wizard, and you can read down below after you select it. This wizard creates a query that finds records or rows in one table that have no related records in another table. So with it selected, you can double click on it. Opens up and it says which table or query contains records you want in the query results. I want the products. You can go ahead and select that and do it the long way and click next. Oh, how boring. But instead, you can click back and just double click on it. It selects it and advances to the next step. So which table or query contains the related records? Well, if we find it and they are related, it would be the order details to see if we're selling all our products, and those that aren't, it will pull up. So the order details, double click, and it says what piece of information is in both tables. That's the product ID. Automatically found it, so it has it selected, and it added it down below where it says between these 2 fields, is there anything that's not pulling over or that's not matched? So it's got all the product IDs over here, but is there anything over here that it can't find? If it can't find it, that means we're not selling it, so it'll pull it up in the results here. Now that's one way to do it. Another way is, let me bring up another example, is you can do 2 or more and not just one field to compare against. So for example, let's pretend we've got a customers table and another customers table. We've got first name and last name and first name and last name. So you could select, both the first names and click on if there's no matches, and it adds it down below. Well, it adds the order number, but pretend with me that they're both first names. And then you go down below and select their last names and click Unmatch. It would add it down below as well. And what it would do is that it would compare between the first and last names for duplicates. Because if I just did it for the first name, and you have a bunch of Bobs but with different last names, well, that's not going to really be helpful, is it? But it's very rare, at least that I've come across. And it's less likely that, you have somebody with the same first name and last name. And so that's why I would select both the first names, unmatch, and select both the last names and unmatch. So we can compare both those fields to, doesn't matter if they have the same first name, doesn't matter if they have the same last name, but collectively they can't have the same first name and last name. In any case, we're back to product ID, click on it so it updates it down below, click next. And it says, what fields do you want to see in the query results? Well, I want the product ID, double click the product. I don't care about the price and the category ID. Click next. And it says, what would you like to name your query? Whew, here's a long name. TBL, products without matching to the order details table. So let's go ahead and view the results. I'm okay with the name. Click finish. Hey, there we go. It's product ID 10 and 11. So if I go to the order details table, and believe me, this won't take long, it's sorted numerically. So do you find a 10 or 11? Come back here. That's where they're at. So we haven't sold those yet. Aw, nuts. Now if you want, you can right click and go to the design view of this query to figure out how it did this. And so you can see the two tables up above. And it's got a join where it says it wants everything from this table and only those things that it found in the other table. Except it's looking for match, but to get it to unmatch, we're looking at the product ID field in the criteria where it says it is null or is empty. So if it's not found over in here, then go ahead and pull it up as something that it can't find. And that's why when we go to the view, the datasheet view, it's these two right here because it cannot find these product IDs in the sales table or the order details, which is what keeps track of what we sold. A duplicate query is a query you create to find duplicate values in a table or query. For example, you can use this to find duplicates in a table or query where maybe somebody inadvertently added the same product twice, like by its name or the ID or price. Another example is in my order details table, double click. I've got the product ID duplicated many times. How about if I find out how many times I sold that product ID? Let's see, product 1. Let's go to the products table. Product 1, Tiki Torch. Let's close out. So how many times did it duplicate here? Or did I sell that item, Tiki Torch? Let's count. 1, 2, no. Let's go ahead and use the duplicate query so it can go ahead and find the duplicates and give us a total for each product here. So let's close out, come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Queries group, and let's do the Wiz thing. Click on that. And there's Find Duplicates. Query Wizard, select that. It will create a query that finds records with duplicate field values in a single table or query. Double click, and it says, which table or query do you want to search for duplicate field values? Well, that's going to be in the order details. Double click on that, and it says which field might contain duplicate information. It's going to be my product ID. Double click, and click next. And it says, do you want the query to show fields in addition to those with duplicate values? Not at the moment. Let me click next. And what do you want to name your query? Find duplicates for the order details. Well, it's the product ID. I'm okay with that, as is. Let's click Finish. Hey, there we go. The product ID number 1, which was Tiki Torch, we got a number of 19 duplicates. Oh, that's fancy. So what we can do is right-click and go to the design view, because if I don't remember the other product IDs, let's go ahead and right-click in a blank area, show the table, and let's bring up the products table, double-click, close out, and add the product name, double click, and then let's go ahead and click on the view button, and there we go. So number 2, okay, that's Fort Tent. In fact, let me go ahead and click on the column header so I can select it and then click and drag that header over. So I got it right next to the name here, the product ID. And let's go ahead and sort this field over here. We can click on the drop down arrow and let's do largest to smallest. And so Screen Tint, hey, that's our biggest seller. We have the most duplicates for that product ID. I want to show you how you can group and summarize your records along with using the criteria field. But first of all, as you recall in an earlier training video, we learned how to add the total row down onto the grid, and by default it grouped every field. Well, except that one. That's an expression. That makes sense. And in this example, it'll group any duplicates in the customer name field together. And because that's the first one in the grid, going from left to right, it groups it by the customer name first. Then next, if any products are duplicates, that is within the customer name group, will then be grouped. So for example, let me show you. Come up here and let's view our datasheet view. You can see that it groups all my customers together, and then after it groups it by the customer name, it'll then group it by product. But wait a second, I thought that groups don't allow duplicates. Well, it doesn't allow duplicates as far as the record goes, because here you have the customer name and then the group by product after that. And so if the same product that the customer purchased more than once, you get duplicates, it will only list it once. But then I added the total sales field over here that would add up those same products purchased by the same customer into one total sales field. So for example, we got Campers Pampers. That's a funny name. I have them listed 3 times. One of them is Campfire Bag, which I know that they made 2 purchases of the Campfire Bag. So for the total sales, I said go ahead and capture both of those and sum them up or add them up together. So instead of having them listed twice, it just said list it once, group it together, and give me the total of those 2 purchases on those 2 separate transaction dates. Well, let me show you how I did this. Let's right-click on the tab, go to the design view. There's my expression. Let's go ahead and right-click on it and zoom in. And I have 2 sets of parentheses, so let's do the first order of operation in the first set. And what you're looking at is my quantity field found in the order details table that I want to be multiplied by the price each field in the products table. Then after it's done that, it'll convert that to currency, and then after that, it'll sum that up with any other fields. So in other words, with Campfire Bag that's been purchased twice by Campers Pampers, it multiplies the quantity by the price each, gives me the total, and then it sums up and adds it to the next one in the, next purchase that they made together. So that sum function is part of the group. So if I go ahead and remove the group, because I want to show you that Campers Pampers did make 2 separate purchases of the same product, so I don't want them grouped together to eliminate the duplicates, then I need to remove the sum function, because if I don't, and I just remove the group here, totals, and I come up here, click on the view button, it says, hey, wait a second, your query doesn't include the specified expression customer name as part of the aggregate function. Okay, so again, the sum function here, because we're not grouping, has nothing to pull together. So we want to make sure that we delete the sum function and that outer set of parentheses so it looks like this, and click OK. Click on the view button and, it was grouped, so it pulled them together, but now since they're not together, I'm looking for Campers Pampers, I can go ahead and group them when I sort them, so click on the customer name drop-down arrow and do sort A to Z. And there's Campers Pampers. They purchased the Campfire Bag once, twice, and that's it. So there we go. There's 1170 plus 78 is 1248. Cool, so let's go ahead and go back, design view, and let's go ahead and do the totals to group them. We got the expression, and now that we have them together and they're grouped by, if I want to get the total for those products that were purchased by the customers, the same products, then I need to put the sum function back in, because if I don't put it back in and I click on the view button, it goes the other way saying, hey, your query doesn't include the specified expression as part of an aggregate function. It's not building upon it and adding it up as we're grouping these and eliminating the duplicates, as it were. So let's right-click on that and say, okay, it's being grouped. We want to make sure that we capture those sales and combine those together within those groups for the quantity multiplied by the price each. So we need to add the sum function, sum, outer set of parentheses, the first, then go at the very end and add that outer. So we have 2 sets, the ini for currency, the outie for the sum function. Click okie dokie, click on the view button, and see Campers Pampers, Campfire Bag. Just one, total right there. Great. Hey, how about if we go ahead and put a criteria in for this, the total sales, to say anything that we made over $5,000 you want to see here, nothing less. Okay, let's go ahead and right click, go to the design view, come below there. Let's do a greater than 5,000, hit enter, click on the view button. How many records? Just a few here. See mountain camping, double bag. Okay, I know the double bag doesn't cost $5,544 because over in the products table, double bag is $99. So it looks like mountain camping is just going nuts. Hey, keep buying more. Thanks a lot. So again, the whole point of using the totals, adding the totals row down below to group records together, is to eliminate any duplicates, but yet get some calculations for those groups and not have them split. Let me do one more to show you the challenge when it comes to using the totals feature. I mean, it's very beneficial if you understand your ways around and, well, you watch my training video here and what to look out for. Let's add the transaction date to the query so we can set up criteria to find all those products that were purchased, let's say after March 1st, 2008. Because let's say we did marketing in the prior month of February and we want to see those results and see how much we made in total sales per client. So let's come back here to the design view and let's get the criteria gone here for the total sales because we want to set it up for the date, which is up here in the orders table, the transaction date, double click. And then down below that, we want to say anything that we made in sales after, so it's greater than 3/1/08. March 1st, 2008. Hit the tab key, puts pound symbols around it. Great, let's go ahead and check it out. Click on the view button. And is it after March 1st, 2008? Well, there's a total of 38 records. Prior to that, we had over 100. And so, cool, that worked. But what's not working for me is the duplicates. Family campers. Let's see, they purchased after March 1st, the screen tent. Well, quite a few times. And the reason why it's pulling is because the dates are different. So it can't combine it into one because the transactions for March 3rd, March 10th, March 21st. So what we need to do, if we want to be able to get the totals, have them grouped together, and yet still get the criteria to say, okay, just find those after March 1st, 2008, so we can get the total for that, because I don't want to add it up here in my head, 178 plus 979 plus 534 for the screen tent for family campers. Whew, that's a lot. Instead, let's go back to the design view. And what we need to do is we need to change it from group by, click on the drop down arrow and say where. And then the moment you choose where it's after March 1st, 2008, it unchecks the show box. Why did it do that? Because if it shows those different transaction dates, it can't group them together because we have something that's not grouping by transaction date, because in any case they are separate transaction dates, but we want to group them by the customer name and the products when they purchase that same product more than once. So here it'll give us the total for all the sales and list it once. We get no duplicates without, showing the transaction date. So come up here, click on the view button, and do we have any duplicates? No, can't fire bag once. We get the total for that after March 1st, 2008. Even though we can't see the results of the date, it's working. It's pulling in the background, doing its thing. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.